Hello everyone and welcome to the Creative Nowhere Land podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by professional athlete Arran Gulliver. Arran is part of the four-man British bobsleigh team who, in 2023, Arran's very first season, became the most successful British crew ever and made history by winning gold at the European Bobsleigh Championships and silver at the Worlds. Arran grew up always wanting to be an athlete, but having left university and now with a job, a mortgage, a fiancée who's now his wife, believed that his time for elite sport was over. Arran talks us through taking a life-changing gamble after seeing an advert on Instagram, quitting his job, and dedicating himself to training to give it one last shot at achieving his dream of becoming a professional athlete. Well, that gamble paid off, and it wasn't long before Arran was hurtling down a mountain at 90 miles an hour alongside the rest of the British bobsleigh team, winning medals and making history. We talk about what it's like to be a professional athlete, the mental resilience and the sacrifice it takes, dealing with setbacks and battling imposter syndrome. But we also go a little deeper and discuss the importance of taking a chance, striving to be better and believing in ourselves to achieve the things that we want in life. We're all trying to achieve something, right? And I once read that if you really want to achieve anything, then you should approach it with the discipline of a professional athlete. And now I can totally see why. I've included links to Arran and the team's social media, as well as everything else that we mention in the show notes for you to check out while you're listening to the podcast. Arran is hugely inspiring, intrinsically motivated, and prides himself on setting big goals, whether that's becoming a professional athlete or climbing Mont Blanc unguided. Arran understands the importance of being disciplined and working hard to achieve the things that we want. Something that I think that we can all learn from, no matter what goal we have. So, let's get into it. So, first of all, mate, thanks for agreeing to do this.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So, my first question, Arran, what did you want to be as a kid?
That is a good question. A number of things. So, soldier, policeman, archaeologist for a period of time, athlete, definitely one of them, football player. Yeah, so a lot of usual stuff, really, I think, for a kid.
So, they have interesting topics. The archaeology one, why archaeology?
So my granddad, he was really in science, and he was a forensic scientist, and he had a really interesting career, but he had lots of interests in different fields of science, and one of them was archaeology. And we used to watch shows with him when we were younger of sort of scientists digging up dinosaur bones and all that sort of stuff. And
so what age are you talking about when you wanted to be the archaeologist?
I was probably around 4.
Okay, so that's probably the youngest one. Why? I mean, you said army, policeman.
Yeah.
They're quite, disciplined and...
Yeah, so my family's got quite a tradition in the military. So the last 3 or 4 generations, I believe, have served in the military. First World War, Second World War, and then my dad after that, around the time of the Falklands and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of always spoken about in our family. So, yeah, always something I had a bit of an interest in, just because, my family had done it.
It's interesting that you say that, because then knowing you, how I know you, that sort of now explains quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
Your family coming from that military background, you've got that instilled discipline in you already, I suppose, even growing up.
Yeah, I mean, so very active family, which has been passed down from generation to generation. So my dad went into PE after being in the army, and both my parents are PE teachers. So discipline when it comes to sport was like through the roof.
Right.
Our household.
So sport clearly growing up was a massive element, with both parents being PE teachers. So, and then you were like, the next step was, I want to be an athlete, I want to be a footballer.
Yeah. So that was, I used to watch Match of the Day when I was younger, and I was good at football, and, I enjoyed it. And it was probably the thing that I enjoyed most when I was younger, was playing football or doing some kind of sport. So that was kind of like, that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. So what is this GCSE 16? You're trying to, are you actually physically, intentionally gearing your studies, your choices in things towards something sport related, or
No, so I think the whole sort of athlete dream or football or whatever was probably a bit younger. So that was probably primary school aged. And then after that, I kind of lost that belief that I was going to be an athlete. So all the way through sort of secondary school, I was really good at sport, but it was always like, oh, there's people better, that's not me type thing. I was quite successful in judo. I won sort of British scores and was ranked pretty high in the UK at one point, but it was a sport I didn't love. I was good at it because I'm athletic. So it was just something I was good at, and then something that I became quite successful in. But that fizzled out.
Yeah, so you've always had that competitiveness, the sportiness, the athleticism. But at some point, as a teenager, realism kicks in and sort of goes, well, am I really going to make it as a professional athlete? Did you have a plan B?
I went and did sport at university. I got my degree in sports science, which 1,000,001 other people do a year. So it's a competitive field, and I followed that for as long as I could. I started doing a master's and actually failed the last test of that. It's called a Viva exam, where you sit down and people will sort of criticize your work and you need to defend it.
Okay.
And because I didn't have that interest, I hadn't invested enough time to be able to defend my own work, if you like. So I actually failed that, which is something it bothered me for a while, but I'm over it now, just because I feel like my achievements now are they've sort of surpassed that fate.
I think we could say that. So you've gone from wanting to be an athlete, going to university, still being athletic.
Yeah.
But that dream of being a professional athlete sort of fading.
Yeah.
But now we're sat here, and let's just tell the people you are part of the European Championship 4-man bobsleigh team and the world's silver medalist.
Yeah. That's right.
So how have we jumped from failing your masters to the bobsleigh? I mean, it's a story in itself, isn't it? I think not many people in the UK especially would go, okay, yeah, who's sporty, this, that, and that. Oh, bobsleigh.
Yeah. It's definitely not a big sport. It's not a sport that a lot of people know anything about, really.
Not in this country, for sure. How on earth did that happen? How did you go from coming out of university, presumably having plans to get a job?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long story, really. So I finished my undergrad, went into the masters, and then failed that. And then just kind of got spat out, really, into the world. It was COVID at the time, so the pandemic had just hit. So it was a really difficult time to find any kind of employment. And I did a couple of part-time jobs here and there to earn a bit of money at Tesco and a bit of delivery driving and that sort of thing. And then a family member of mine set up a business in construction. So I sort of jumped in with him and started working for him. So that was fitting sort of height safety equipment. So abseil posts, guardrail, all that sort of stuff on high building. Now, I hated the job.
I was going to say, from knowing you a little bit, I can't see you doing that.
No.
I mean, obviously, physically, you're super strong. You can do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of job satisfaction.
Yeah. I mean, I had to learn a lot quickly, and I was okay at the job, but I just hated it. It just wasn't for me. And I was thinking, there's got to be more to life than this. And that's when I saw the advert for the British bobsleigh.
I'm sorry, just you were on holiday, right?
Yeah.
You're on a holiday.
Yeah, so I've missed out a little bit of the story, actually. So I got into sprinting because, I always wanted to do a sport, right? And I wasn't doing anything.
Is this alongside when you're
alongside when I was working? Yeah. So I got into sprinting and I was good at it. But I was working full time. So I was putting in sort of 15-hour days and then trying to come back and train. And I wasn't getting the most out of myself. I knew that. Me and a friend of mine, we went on a holiday to Tenerife to do a sort of summer training camp, if you like. So we were meant to be out there sprinting and doing all that sort of stuff. I tore my hamstring on the first session.
Ooh.
So it ended up being a bit of a booze up holiday. I drowned my sorrows, really. But it was the last day of that holiday. My friend of mine showed me an advert on Instagram, and it was the British bobsleigh asking for people to come and try the sport. And he said, I think you'll be pretty good at this. So I answered with an email. The guy got back to me the same day and he booked me onto a trial.
And up to this point, you'd never thought about bobsleigh,
no,
you'd
no.
never thought about winter sports or...
Not other than, seeing it in the Olympics and cool runnings and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So when you're sat on a beach, possibly with a hangover, what's going through your head that you go, yeah, I think, forget this full-time job, worth giving it a go? Is that just your mentality from forever? Obviously, you've got that very disciplined mentality and you want to compete.
Yeah. So I was 24 at the time and I had thought my time for like elite sport was over. I thought, well, this is a one last roll of the dice. Why not go down, trial? It'll be fun, even if I don't get it. See what I can do, sort of thing. Nothing to lose, right? So
no, not at all. So you reply to an ad on Instagram. What happens? You get called to tryouts. What does the tryout look like for bobsleigh?
This is going to sound ridiculous, but first thing I did was quit my job.
What, straight out?
Straight away, yeah. Because at the time, I was working anywhere between 12 to 16-hour days every day. And I was coming back and trying to train, and my performance was suffering because of that.
What does training look like for a sprinter with a full-time job? What is that? Just weights on the track? What?
I couldn't do weights because if I'd tried to do weights and sprint and work, I'd have just been injured all the time. So, I'd have opened myself up to a plethora of injuries. So,
but at 24, you still had that knowledge to look after your body.
Yeah, I mean, I'd done my degree, right? So I knew there was I knew a thing or two about training load and how much you can take, and I just
risk reward payoff.
And being like a lifelong athlete, I kind of knew my body pretty well. So I was doing no weights, no gym work at all, sprinting 2 or 3 times a week, trying to compete and running slower than I should have been because of all the volume I was doing.
So, dude, that's a bold move. Like, so you quit your job when you'd found out you'd been accepted, or when you knew you were going to the tryouts?
Well, I knew I was going to the tryouts, yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, wow. So you hadn't even been accepted?
No, I quit. I just quit. Well, I just thought, why not? Like, I'm 24 now, so this is my one last shot at this. So, if I quit my job, I'm going to be able to perform better. And I did. That year I ran sprint times that qualified me to British Nationals. I dropped half a second off my 100-metre PB.
Wow. Just
from stopping working and just living like an athlete.
So at that point, what are you running?
So up to that point, I'd ran like an 11.2, which is nothing to write home about. That season, I ran 10.75 100 metres, 6.89, 60 metres. So it was like the performances were starting to come. Then I went to this tryout and I was the quickest there. So I was like, something's working here.
What are the people around you saying to you at this point? Your mate, you're in business with, your friends, your family, are they supportive, a little nervous for you?
Yeah, I mean, so Maisie, who's my girlfriend at the time, fiance now, she was losing her mind about it because obviously I had a house at that point. I'd bought a house, we had a mortgage, we had bills and life. I just had a load of money saved that I just used to get myself through that period. Plus I picked up the odd day of like delivery work here and there driving because you sat down all day. It meant I could, just take it as a rest day.
Yeah, and any means necessary to earn some funds to keep you going.
Yeah, that was it. Right? And then I just prioritised the training for bobsleigh.
Okay, so you've replied to your ads, you've got your tryouts, you're the fastest man there. What happens? I mean, do they just go, right, you're now in the 4-man, or...
The group of us that applied that year got invited back to a number of different sessions. Mm-hmm. So I must have been invited back to sort of 3 or 4 sessions before Brad contacted me.
And just for context, obviously, I know who Brad is. Who's Brad?
So Brad's the driver of the Olympic team. Yeah, Olympic sled.
Brad's like the veteran of the game, right?
That's right, yeah. So he's
probably won't appreciate me saying that, but he's the most experienced in
absolutely,
that sense, in terms of
bobsleigh. Doing it sort of 10 years now and has a lot of experience. So. But he invited me down to train with his team.
And who was the team at that point?
So Brad, Taylor, Greg, and then there was me, 3 new guys, so me, Rory and Leon.
So you're invited down to train with the team. Just for everyone's reference, Britain doesn't have an ice bobsleigh track, obviously. So what's the training look like when you're starting to train with this team? Yeah,
so it's a trolley essentially on rails that you put down a big hill. I don't know how else to describe it. It looks like a bobsleigh a bit. There's handles and...
I mean, I've seen this stuff. It looks quite... I don't want to say primitive, but it's a means to an end, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is essentially that. It's
exactly.
a sled that weighs the same as a bobsleigh.
Yeah.
If not more, you can add more weight to it and you are just pushing it for your life, right?
Yeah.
So what's it like meeting the guys for the first time? And presumably these guys have done it before. You're the newbie on camp. What's the feeling like when you walk in there going...
You just want to impress.
Right.
You know, like I just wanted to impress. I just wanted to impress physically and impress socially as well. I didn't want them to think I was weird or anything like that. I wanted to get on, try and have a laugh and a joke with them, but then show them that I was serious about training.
Yeah, and I suppose the team dynamics, you're trying to do a sport that is all about synchronization and all four of you being in perfect harmony to get the perfect push off, the perfect time, everything. Is there any initiations? Is there some sort of bonding thing that you go through, or is it just is that part of the team thing? Obviously, you have to go on your performance, but is there something about that, the fact of how you all bond together as a team?
I think it's definitely something they were looking for. They wanted to find people who were compatible with them, but who also had it athletically, who were going to fit into that team. And I understand why. You're away on season with each other for anywhere between 4 to 6 months. You're in each other's pockets all the time. You're sharing rooms. You eat together. You train together. You do everything together. So if you've got a bad apple there, it's just going to bring the whole camp down.
Can you pinpoint a moment where you went, yeah, I feel like I'm now part of this team? I know that's a weird question, but psychologically, I think it's important, judging from what you've said about the importance of that camaraderie as a team, that synchronization, especially in your sport.
Yeah.
Is there a moment that you can pinpoint and go, oh, it might be something really silly? Like,
yeah, I think if I had to pick a moment, so we went after summer testing, we went out testing in Germany, did some testing on ice, which was my first time on ice. We finished our testing and the results were in and whatever else. And I remember Taylor coming up to me and he kind of gave me this look and this little nod and he did well there.
Great.
Like that. I felt like then it was going to happen, like it was going to happen for me.
You've only pushed on the track. Presumably you're doing lots of weight and strength and conditioning training. To get to this point, you're sprinting. We all know you're fast. We know you're powerful.
Yeah. I mean, German camp, it was just a push track again on ice. So it was a bit like what we have in Bath, but it was made out of ice. And even that was like nerve wracking because you're on ice, right? You think, I'm going to slip, I can slip.
Well, it's an alien thing.
Yeah,
Who runs on ice?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Most of us will avoid ice like the plague, try not to slip on it, laugh at people when they slip over on a slippy corner or something. But then you're going, all right, I've got to run as fast as I possibly can, but on ice. Surely there's nothing that can prepare you for the first time you run on ice like that.
No, I don't think there is. I mean, maybe like a bit of experience in spikes might help you, but I don't think. I just remember we were all stood there and there was four of us new guys and someone asked, maybe Brad, oh, right, who wants to go first then? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I got up there, I was just like, shit, I can make a right fool of myself here. But I think you just got to go for it, haven't you?
So you've gone, right, I volunteer, I'm the first one to go through it.
Yeah.
What's that? What was it like? Was it all fine, or were there any hiccups? Or
I think it went pretty well actually. The thing that I found was like the most different was ice is like rock hard, and like that's obvious, right? You think, but it's like running on concrete, and when you're sprinting and pushing a sleigh, and you're slamming your feet down into the track, it's like your calves and your legs are just wrecked.
Is that impact-wise?
Yeah, impact-wise, yeah. So if you think usually we're on sort of running track type materials and there's that bit of give because it's rubber. So that was the biggest thing I noticed that was different. And it's freezing cold, obviously. You feel like you're doing a winter sport then at that point.
Right. Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty. When did you get on a track? What's the progression? Have you got to go, right, I've whittled out the other few rookies, or does everyone go?
Yeah, so me and Leon pushed very similar times on the ice push testing. But then Leon actually broke his toe that week, and that was doing dry loading drills. So we literally just had the sled in the garage, and we were all learning how to jump in, and he just smacked his toe off the side of the sled. God. Broke his toe, so that was him out. So I was pretty confident it was going to be me going away with the team, plus one of the other lads that was there, Rory. So that's how the selection thing kind of went.
Oh, I feel bad for Leon.
Yeah, it was a shame.
Obviously, then that means you get to step up.
Yeah, which is like the harsh reality.
Yeah.
So
is that something you thought about in competitive sport, where you sort of go, well, we're really close mates, but I now feel a bit bad that I'm taking his place, or is it all quite like, obviously Leon's gutted.
Yeah.
But is it all quite, we're all a team, you step up? I'm not trying to stir the pot and create any animosity between anyone, but I'm just interested in that psychology. I mean, obviously Leon can speak about it better. He's the one that's broken his toe and is now sort of.
I think we were all gutted for him.
Yeah.
And I think it was especially because he, on the Bath push track, he was the slowest. And then he we all got out on ice, and he all of a sudden was the fastest joint with me. And that's just, there's slight differences between dry push track and an ice, So, he was super hyped that he had made this huge, he'd made up all this ground, and all of a sudden he was right there, and then he broke his toe. So everyone was a bit gutted for him, but
double-edged sword. I know you don't.
I don't want to, but in a selfish way, you are well, this is my chance now. That could have easily been me, and he would have had the same chance to be the starter. So it's you've got to take it, haven't you? You can't.
Yeah, but it's sort of, to me, that must show that the team are quite as strong as a friendship, as a bond, that there wasn't any of that.
Yeah,
and you're all genuinely quite gutted for Leon,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
So you've stepped up.
Yeah,
you're now starting man in the 4-man bobsleigh.
Yeah.
So going down the whole track, what is that like? Because I've spoken to you guys about it, because at the moment I'm doing a project with the UK 4-man bobsleigh team, a photography and visual project documenting their journey. So I've been really lucky to get a bit of an insight into it. But what is that like? I mean, I know there's probably a checklist of things in your mind that you're going through at the top, going, shit, I've got to remember this, I've got to be focused, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
As well as going, I'm going to be flying down this thing. How fast do you go in these things?
So this was the thing. The first track I started on was the fastest track in the world.
And where's that?
Whistler.
So is this in training or is this in competition?
This is in training.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So this was my first ever run down a track.
Okay. What is that like? Fastest. I can't even imagine.
It was it's so difficult, because everyone always finds it really hard to kind of describe how it feels, because it's so alien.
Yeah.
I'm sure a fighter pilot might get this. They might be able to understand, but it's loud, really loud, and bumpy, loud and bumpy. And so your body's just kind of been thrown around a bit. And then you hit the corners, and then all of a sudden, you feel the G-forces. And if anyone has felt G-forces before, they'll know what I'm talking about. But it's the best way I can describe it is if someone's got a massive vacuum down in the bottom of the sled and it's sucking you down into the sled. That's kind of the way it feels. And then, so you'll come into a corner and you sort of experience that, the G-forces build, and then slowly come off, and everything, you can't breathe, everything locks up, and you get sucked down, and then it'll come off as you come out of it. But then it's still loud and bumpy. So the whole experience is just like a massive sensory overload. Yeah.
So do you know what sort? I mean, I know every course must be different, but do you know what sort of G's you're pulling in these things? What sort of speeds
I think
you're going?
It's 6 to 7 G's on some of the faster, twistier track.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Which Whistler is one of them. So there's a big corner right at the end called Thunderbird on Whistler. That's the last corner. And the speed trap for the top speed is taken just as you enter the corner. So you're doing anywhere up to 97 mile an hour at that point. And then you get whooped around this corner and you come into it facing one way. You go all the way around the corner, a full 180, and then you come back the other way. So yeah, and you're sort of just stuck in this corner. You can't breathe. You're getting pushed lower and lower and lower down into the sled, and you just know it's the end, so you've got to suffer it, right? It's hefty. When I got out at the bottom, I was staggering around the place. I was slurring my words, felt a bit sick, faint. Yeah.
And what are the other boys like? Are they just a bit more accustomed to it? They're like, rookie.
No, I think because it's so brutal, they kind of they acknowledge the fact you've done it. They're kind of okay. Fair play, mate. How was that? And
are you all right?
Yeah. Are you all right? Basically.
Do you want to do it again?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so extreme.
Because they have had people, phenomenal athletes come through, push really well, get in the team, do the first run, and then never do the sport again.
Oh, really? Just because it's too much?
Yeah.
Did you come out and go, I'm battered, but wow, that was amazing? Presumably you wanted to do it again. Obviously, you're not one of these that have gone, oh, I don't really fancy that.
I just kind of thought, well, if these guys can do it, I can do it.
Which is such an interesting mentality, which is a mentality I think you get in a lot of disciplined athletes, where it's like, well, if someone else can do it, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
So talk me through it. So you've done your first run down an actual course.
Yeah.
How many more times do you go down this course before you're actually in full competition?
Not many. I think maybe sort of around 10 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So you start off in the 2-man. So it's just you and Brad. Because 2-man's a bit easier to drive. So for Brad, pre-season, he hasn't driven for a few months, likes to get his eye back in. So 2-man's what he likes to use at first. And then when he's more confident, that's when you pull out the 4-man. So I think I probably did maybe 6 or runs in the 4-man.
And two-man slower than four-man, presumably because of you got extra weight with the four-man? It makes you go faster?
Yeah.
My limited physics knowledge, but...
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Yeah, so a two-man is slightly slower, yeah.
And in terms of Brad, so Brad's almost got to be... He's got to know every turn, every corner. And I know that comes with experience, but how... Are there simulators or...
So the Germans have simulators, but they've got all the money in the world to chuck at bobsleigh. We don't. So it's a case for Brad of just when he's at the track, learning it.
Wow.
He's been doing it now he's been driving for 8 or 9 years. So he has been to all the tracks times. And I think there is an element of you're a good driver or you're a bad driver.
Right.
Actually, you get used to picking out the racing lines and those sorts of things. Yeah. And he's very good at it.
I mean, this is still your rookie season. This is your first time going into the bobsleigh.
Yeah.
You've done 10 or so practice runs.
Yeah.
And now, so what's the first competition that you go to?
So that was a North American Cup race. So our team typically competes at the World Cup level, which is the standard above. But we thought we'll get a race in under our belt because I'm new and all that sort of stuff. The North American Cup. And we won the race.
Oh, wow.
And there was 2 rookies on the sled. So it was me and the other lad who was out with us, Rory. So we both got the race experience and it went really well. You know, we all pushed well, loaded well. I think we were the fastest pushers.
Wow.
That day. A lot of the big teams weren't there. So there was no Swiss, no Germans. A lot of the European teams weren't there, but it was still a big achievement. You know, it was just great to get a race under the belt. And we won, so...
Does that affect... I mean, presumably that helps your mindset going into the next competition to know that, well, we've just won a race.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, I had it a few times. I was sort of on the start block this season in a race, and this little thought came into my head, like, oh, what if I miss the bail? What if I don't load properly? If I trip and fall, I don't get in. But I just kind of had to put that out of my mind and just sort of say, like, I just put myself into autopilot because I knew I could do it. Because I'd done it loads of times in training. So I knew I could do it.
And is that something, that little niggle of doubt, is that something that comes in every time you get on the thing, or is it just every now and again? I think, it must cross your mind.
I think it comes in every time. Yeah. But as the season went on, it was just, I knew it was coming. I knew that thought was going to come. So when it did, it was just like, shut up.
Wow, that takes some mental resilience.
Yeah.
So you've won your North American Cup, and then do we go into the big ones?
Yeah, so a couple of weeks later, we had the World Cup. There, same place.
So just for the listeners, just to get a timeline. So when did you reply to the advert? When did you start training? When did you first do your track? Because I know that it's not a long time, is it?
No, so I applied to the advert in May, at some point, start of May. Went down to the track towards the end of June, so 20th of June or something like that. That was my first time pushing. And then first time pushing on ice, that was end of September. First time down a track was the middle of October. And then first race was 12th of November. That was the North American.
What's after the North American?
The World Cup, yeah.
So the World Cup comes. So this is big boy time, right?
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you know, the track's swarming with like Germans, all the big teams are there, you know, all the powerhouses of bobsleigh.
And as the newbie, what's going through your mind when you're looking around?
I'm like, what am I doing? It was like imposter syndrome. I was just there and I was looking around and I was thinking, well, I mean, Greg introduced me to a few of the guys. It's like, oh, well, this guy's won 4 gold medals at the Olympics. And this guy, you know, and you're sort of just thinking like, this was 5 months ago. Or maybe a bit longer. I was
drunk on a beach replying to an advert.
Yeah, on a building site somewhere trying to fake it.
And I think that, I mean, as a creative, I think we talk about imposter syndrome a lot, this idea, but as a professional athlete, that idea of imposter syndrome must be really tricky to deal with.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, only in the sense that I think the outcomes are more tangible. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's like in a competitive sport, when imposter syndrome kicks in, you've got to battle it out. Otherwise, it could be the end of the...
Yeah.
I guess my question is, how do you deal with that imposter syndrome, the mental resilience? Is it just the fact that you have to remember that you know you've done it and you can do it?
Yeah. So it's just a case of, like you say, like I knew I was a good athlete, so I just thought, well, I'm going to do my own thing, you know, I'll get warmed up. And like I did get a lot of support from my teammates as well, who were like, they were sort of bigging me out, like, you know, you're going to be fine. It's going to be great. You're good. You know, we know you can push, so let's not worry about it. let's just go out there and get a good result.
Okay, so this sort of leads on to one of my next questions. This whole idea, you guys have got to be so synchronized. What's the routine when race day comes? Is it methodical? Do you always do the same thing? Do you have some rituals or unique mental processes that you and the team go through to get yourself in that mindset to get race ready?
Yeah, I can't speak for the other guys, but obviously we all do our own sort of warm-ups and stuff like that, which is a ritual in a certain way because, you know what you want to be doing. So that's kind of a ritual. For me personally, I do a bit of a ritual just this season I did, just when I was sat in the changing room and I'd grab my helmet and look at the front of my helmet with the visor down and it had my name on it and then the British flag above it. I was just trying to just look at it and think, well, I'm here. This is it. This is the pinnacle of sport. Right, so let's go out there and fucking do it. Let's not let anyone down. There's a lot on the line, so that pressure for me, I like it. So I was looking at it and just thinking, remember where you've come from, remember why you want to be doing this, and how much you want this.
What is the why?
So I got asked that question the other day.
Oh, really?
Why are you doing this? Yeah,
because in my eyes, I know you now, and I've known you, and knowing you, even in the short time that I know. It could be anything. I don't think it even necessarily have to be bobsleigh. It's your mentality. So what's the why? Because, like I said, I think even if it wasn't bobsleigh, it'd be something else.
Yeah.
What is that do you think is the driver for you there?
I think there's a lot of things that have sort of led into it. As I mentioned earlier, like being brought up around sporty parents who, so there was always a lot of stock put into sport and sporting achievements. So I think that was sort of instilled into me, if you like. And in terms of sporting achievement, that's like one of the most important things I can do is to achieve something in sport.
But is that for you? Is that to make your parents, your family proud? Is it?
I think it's for me, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, a lot of pride in myself. And then I just love it. It's like I love having goals and I love moving towards them and I love working hard to get there. That type 2 fun. You hate it at the time. You love it after. You love the result. And yeah, I love it. There's nothing better for me.
And I can imagine as a competitive athlete, it's hard to describe if you haven't done it.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think that competitive nature, I can see that in you. And I think it's something, as I say, even if it wasn't bobsleigh, you'd find something else.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think obviously I'm talking at it from the perspective of an athlete. I think everyone has their own field, right? So, you probably feel the same way. Photography and that side of things where.
Yeah, I think I do completely. So you've got your personal routine. What's the synchronization? What's the ritual that the 4 of you guys go to know that we are going to get this perfect? And I know it's practice and you've done it a million times and the reassurance that you've got in each other that you can do it.
Yeah.
What's the ritual when you're all 4 of you are stood at the sled and you're looking at each other going, right, now we've got to push this thing. What's the thing? Is it always the same?
Yeah. So there is a little cadence thing that we do at the start, which is always the same. Before that, each athlete's a bit different. And I think it would be strange if we acted in a different way. So Brad's very focused and he sort of stares off down the track and he might shout a bit of encouragement every now and again. Greg is a bit of a hype man. He's getting everyone G'd up. I do a bit of shouting, get myself G'd up. Taylor's always quiet, focused. Yeah, I don't know. He might not know that. I don't want him to think. I don't want him to think about it actually, but because I like it. When Taylor's quiet, I know.
That he's
like really internally motivated kind of character. So if he was being loud and whatever, I'd know that something had gone wrong. Okay. And so he's always quiet. Leon's very loud, getting everyone G'd up. So we've all got our own little things, right? But then as soon as that green light flicks on, so there's like a little red and green light. Mm-hmm. Green light will flick on. That means you've got 60 seconds then to start. Brad will turn around, claps, puts his hand in the middle. Then I put my hand on. Taylor puts his hand on. Greg puts his hand on. Brad goes on top. I can't even remember what he says. It's so strange.
But I suppose it's like it's that muscle memory thing, isn't it? When you're in it, you just do it. But then trying to explain to someone else what you're doing is kind of hard. It doesn't matter, but you've got this little. But I think, that's something that you guys do every time.
Yeah,
no one needs to know it. I mean, we can see it when competition.
Yeah, sure.
Where were you in the sled? What's your role? I mean, Brad's the driver.
Yeah. So when we're lining up to push, I'm the guy behind Brad, and I get in behind him as well.
Second.
So number 2. Yeah.
Greg's at the back.
Yeah.
And he's the brakeman, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And his role is to just stop you from all dying at the end, right? Slow you down and put the brakes on and things like that.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, is that an experience thing, or do you have the more powerful guys in the middle to push? Obviously, Brad, the driver, has to be at the front because he's the driver.
So that's right. So obviously Brad's at the front because he's the driver. Then you usually put two, more powerful guys on the sides to get the sled moving off the line. And then the fastest guy goes on the back.
How much does the sled weigh?
200, it should weigh 210.
That like a competition weight?
Yeah, so there's the competition weight, they weigh it sled and crew, and that's a maximum of 630.
Right.
So that would mean if the sled's 210, average weight of the athletes needs to be 105.
That's still pretty big, right? What are you?
I'm 94.
And you're a unit.
Yeah,
right.
so I'm quite far off that.
And what's Taylor? Because Taylor's obviously the biggest guy in the
Yeah, I think he was competing at around 114 this season. Yeah. Great. Me and Greg are lighter. It's not bad though. Like lighter, smaller frames in the sled is pretty good because you can get lower because there's more room to move. If you've got 4 huge guys in there, all of a sudden it's like shoulders are stuck out the top and it's a lot of air resistance and it slows you down. So,
okay, so you've gone through your ritual. You're now in competition mode. You're at the Worlds. Presumably, do you get like one run? Everyone goes a run. Go, the Swiss are the fastest at the moment. The UK are behind them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's at the end of 3 runs or 4 runs, or how?
It's 2 runs.
It's only 2.
Yeah, so 2 heats. Yeah, so you've got
not much room forever then.
No, so there's probably about an hour between heats. So yeah, 1 run and then an hour and 2. World Champs is slightly different. So there's 4 heats. Okay. That's over 2 days. Yeah.
So sorry, I've backtracked. What did you do? The Europeans first or the Worlds first?
We did Europeans first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then we went.
Okay, so Europeans. So what's your first run like on the Europeans? Is it good? Because you won. Your team won the gold at the Europeans, right?
Yeah, we won gold.
Yeah. So, but is it like first run? Oh yeah, we've nailed it straight off, or is it? Oh, we've got some work to do on our second run.
I can't remember.
Arran.
Oh, I know, this is awful.
But in a way, I suppose, especially for you being new to it all, it's so much to take in.
Yeah, man. I'm just
like this is your first. We're forgetting that this is your first season. You've only been down on a bobsleigh track a couple of weeks beforehand, and now you're at the European Championships, about to compete in the most important 2 runs.
Yeah, we weren't first. We were second.
Okay,
we were second. I remember we were second. It was one of the German sleds that was in front. The German track we were on, a German hadn't lost there since, I think it was like 17 years, like since 2000.
Wow.
Some early 2000s.
So after that first run, you're in second. What are you guys thinking? What are you doing? Are you doing anything different? Is there a different mentality? Is there like, we've got to try something new, or we've got to go a bit, sounds stupid, we've got to go faster. That's the stupidest thing I've said today. But you know what I mean? It's like, what are you saying to each other? What are you doing in that hour between runs to go, right, we've got to up our game here?
Yeah, so usually we'll sit down as brakemen, so the 3 of us. Brad does do his own thing, but the 3 of us will sit down and usually discuss what we think could be better in the second push. And that worked a lot this season because most of the time we were sort of pushing, 4 100ths quicker on the second push. And we knew we had that, so we always knew we had that in our lot.
What was it generally?
We don't know.
What were you analysing in those little meetings and going, oh,
yeah,
shit, my spikes didn't connect properly?
Yeah, so it was whether we felt we could have given more on the initial hit, the first couple of steps, whether the load could be any better, whether our body positions could be any better, how it felt. As athletes, we know our bodies so well. A lot of the time we can just tell if something's working well by how it feels. If someone's filmed it, we might have a look at the video footage as well and just have a little look, see if there's anything more we think we can do. And European champs, we pushed 5.16, 5.16 first run. The second run, we pushed in a 5.1. So we went...
Wow.
Yeah, so we were, 5 100, 6 100 quicker than anybody else for that race.
And this is the maddest thing, isn't it? It's such tiny increments of time, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if I've done my research right, you won the European gold by 0.09 seconds.
That's right, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's like splitting hairs. Yeah, I think you blink at 0.04.
How do you find those increments of time?
It feels bigger when you're in it.
Really?
Yeah, so from the first push to the second push on that, it felt like we were moving so much quicker. And I mean, so you're talking 6 100ths we pushed quicker, which is nothing, but everything about that second push just felt quicker. I think you just gotta rip it out of somewhere, right? It's like and as long as, like, I think, again, it comes down to everyone's on the same page, you know, everyone has faith in themselves and each other. There's no, like, doubt. We truly believed we would get the fastest pushers and the best team this year. Like, that was our mentality. After we got the first race out of the way, and we came second, and we realised that we were, like, on for a good season. It was like we were telling each other all year, you know, we're going to be number one. We're going to win. We're going to win the European champs. We'll win the world champs. No one's going to get near us on the start. Like, that was our mentality.
So mindset.
Yeah. And we just fed off each other all year. You know, we all trained hard together and we all performed well. It's like, it's like a real momentum kind of thing.
So second run down at the Worlds, at the Europeans where you won gold. Are you last to go? Are you got people after you? You done your run, and do you know at the bottom that you've won, or do you know that you've got other people to go after you?
I've got it wrong. We were fastest on the first heat. We were because we came down and we crossed the line and we knew we had won. That's right. And it was like it was like snow, heavy snow,
right?
Super atmospheric. We crossed the line and Brad shouts break. That's when, because we're all tucked right down in the sled, right? So all I'm looking at is basically the bottom of the sled between my legs. Brad shouts break. We all look up. And there's a timer, and it's either I didn't even look at the number. It was like it's either green and we've won, or it's red and we've lost.
Oh, wow! So
it was green, and we all just started going.
What does that feel like? I mean, as a rookie, your first,
Yeah,
it must be hard to put into words.
It is hard to put into words. It was crazy, It was just like I still pinch myself when I think about it now. It's almost like it didn't happen. It's like it was a dream sort of thing. At the time, I was just so happy I could be a part of that. It sounds a bit cliche, but like, because it was the best season for Brad's team ever, best season for a British team ever.
Well, did I get this right? Something like 84 years since any British four-man bobsleigh had won anything in the past, or
it won a World Champs medal.
Won a World Champs medal.
I think it was first European gold since the 60s.
Which in British sport, for a country that's not hugely well known for winter sports, I suppose, that's an insane achievement, dude.
And that's what I mean. And I just felt like I'd established myself, like I was part of it. There was no question now as to why I should be there. And
so no niggling imposter syndrome.
No, that had gone. No, it just felt like, we were the team. We were the guys to be doing.
Well, and I suppose that comes with putting the training in place and achieving those things to go, well, we've achieved it, so we know we can. I suppose always up until you achieve those moments, the question's always there, right? For any athlete, can I do it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the four of you have just come in and smashed it. And presumably, as I say, no major bobsleigh recognition. What's the word I'm looking for? There's been no major bobsleigh achievements as such for such a long time. And the four of you are there looking at each other going, I guess at the time you're not thinking, oh, we've made history, we're not doing anything. You're just thinking we fucking won it. And
yeah, that's it. So a lot of the other athletes from the other countries they're cool guys. We get on really well with them, and they congratulated us. Even the Germans that, would have bitterly wanted to win that, they were so nice to us. They congratulated us and everything like that. And that was really nice to see. Nice community bobsleigh. And then, of course, you stay at the track, get your medals and all that sort of stuff, and then come back to the hotel and you feel kind of flat because it's like there's been such a massive high. It's like what goes up must come down, right? So you just everyone sort of lay there and you're in like this coma of satisfaction, if you like. But it's not like we wanted to party or anything like that. And it seems like the other lads as well. You just sort of want to lie there and absorb it all and chill out, really.
Would you say there's something almost like, I don't know what the adage is, but is it the journey's better than the goal? It's like you've achieved the goal, but actually the journey to get there was the main thing. Now you've done it, you've got to find the next goal. Once you've climbed to the top of the mountain, where's to go?
Where else can you go? Yeah.
So that slump, that come down after a big win like that must be difficult to deal with. But then how long until you're into next competition?
The following weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you go from Europeans to Worlds. And where's the Worlds competition held?
That's St. Moritz in Switzerland, which is like the home of bobsleigh. That's where it was invented.
Oh, really?
And it was invented by British guys, actually.
What?
Yeah. So it was
bobsleigh is invented by British people?
Yeah. Bunch of guys who were in the military. and they were out in Switzerland doing a bit of winter training, and they created a bit of a sledging competition, and that's basically what it was. They made a track,
Wow.
in the snow, had a bit of a sledging competition, and then it sort of stuck. Other countries started getting involved, and then it was like, oh, who can build the fastest sled? And then it was athletes who can push it fast and get in, and that's how it just evolved.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I suppose you've had to do your research on your bobsleigh now. Now you're in it.
Yeah.
I suppose no one really knows much about bobsleigh until you sort of find yourself...
No, I'd be a bit of a disgrace if I didn't know anything about the sport.
No, I suppose it's true, but as I say, until you're in it, how do you learn about anything like that? I mean, I've been lucky enough to come down a few times to Bath University where you guys train, so I'm learning more and more each time, and I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So you've won your golds at European.
Yeah.
Now you're off to the Worlds full of confidence, presumably.
Yeah.
What's that like? Is there any blips along the way? Or is it all plain sailing to the Worlds?
Yeah, pretty plain sailing, the way the Worlds work is slightly different. It's over 2 weeks, and you do 2-man first week. Okay. So it's all 2-man bobsleigh racing, and they'll do 2 heats Saturday, 2 heats Sunday, 4 heats altogether. So then they'll get the result of that. They're 2-man at the World Championships, and then the second week at World Championships is 4-man. So the first week I spent doing nothing, basically.
Oh, really?
Well, I say nothing. I was helping the guys with the 2-man, polishing all the runners and making sure the sled was all right, and then sorting them out in training sessions and making sure they had everything they needed, and filming them so Brad could learn certain corners and all this sort of stuff. And the cool thing about having the Worlds at St Moritz is the only natural track left in the world, so it's made out of snow each year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so all the other tracks are, concrete tracks they put in, and then they freeze like an ice rink, essentially. St Moritz is natural, which means it's different every year.
Oh, wow.
So that the corners are roughly the same. It's the same course, but, of course...
The nuances of differences. Oh, it's a different type of snow this year. Or
yeah,
it's
that's
different...
it. Yeah, and like the snow conditions, because it's snow, not ice, it behaves differently to ice. So
faster, slower?
It's a funny one because ice, you're faster if you go early in the race because the ice isn't torn up. On the snow, you're faster if you go later because it gets more compacted. Harder. Yeah. And there's more give in it. It was so weird because I mentioned how it was so loud, these ice tracks, and you go down. Moritz is silent because the snow just muffles the sound. And there's a point where you're going down the straight and all you hear is just the wind whipping over the top of the bobsleigh.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a cool...
What an art form, though, as well. I'm sure that's not easy to build a bobsleigh track.
No, it must be... the track is like 1,700 metres long. It's over a mile, and they do that every year.
Okay, so they've built the track. You're down in St Moritz and you're at the Worlds now.
Yeah.
So this is... So you've just, you've come off the Euros, you're the European champions, you're going into Worlds. Are you, you're confident, right? There's the difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're very confident.
Very confident. We've just beaten the Germans twice, and we beat them twice on their home soil. And we'd started to gather all these accolades that no one had ever done. We were already the most successful British crew ever and all this sort of stuff. So we had a real belief that, we were still on the up, we were still going to absolutely smash Worlds. And I remember I had an interview from BBC News before, and they wanted to speak to me about my story and all that sort of stuff. And they asked me, so how do you think it's going to go? And I just said, I think we'll win. I called it, but we didn't win. We came second. But it was amazing. It was an amazing achievement. And actually, looking at it, I don't think we deserved to win. The best team won. So I can't be upset about it.
So what do you think was different compared to the Euros that was different to the Worlds? Obviously different track, different conditions, but...
Track played a big part, I think. Physically, we got outpushed at the Worlds, whereas we output everyone at the Euros, and we had done before. And it was funny because after the Worlds, we weren't the fastest pushers again that season. There was only another couple of races, but we weren't the fastest. So I think potentially we had peaked as a team maybe a little bit early.
Okay.
You've got to balance it and get it right. It's hard to know exactly what you need to do to peak in your training. And especially for me this year, being new and not competing at this level in sport, I didn't know what types of training were going to make me peak. I didn't know how long the types of training were going to take to make me peak. And I think looking back at it, and I've spoken to my coach, my strength and conditioning coach about it, we probably got it a bit wrong. And I think I peaked at the Europeans or the week before.
Right.
And then after that, sort of 3 or 4 weeks later, my performance wasn't quite at the level it was before, personally.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the other guys.
But at this point, you're European champion and
you still just got to go
world
into it with a belief,
medalist,
right?
so-
Yeah, you still got to just. I mean, I was at the time like I was in a bit of pain. You know, I had shin splints, like all those sort of niggles had started to creep in. But I was like, I'm still going to perform.
I was going to ask you about that. What are the obviously a season must be
brutal.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you're saying you're going from running tracks which have got a bit of give to running on essentially ice, concrete, impact, putting yourself through G-force, still training presumably in between races as well.
Yeah.
You've got to be very careful, right?
Yeah, super careful. And I think, well, for me personally, it was like from the knee down that started to give way. And I think that was because you're running on ice. And then when you're doing your sprint work outside of that, it's a lot of the time, these places are frozen solid, right? So there's no running track. You're running on like tarmac, car parks and stuff like that to get your sprint training in. And so it's just, you're going from one rock hard surface to the next.
Impact.
Yeah, and it just obliterated my sort of lower legs. I think I ended up with a bit of Achilles tendonitis and shin splints, and yeah, so
So
it gets painful. The starts getting
Yeah, I
painful.
mean, it sounds really brutal, and I've seen the training you guys go through, and it's unbelievable, really, even in your off season. So your first season, it's a pretty good rookie season, right? As I say, you're silver medalist at the World Championship, gold medalist at the European Championships. You must be on the highest high.
Yeah. Well, the head of the BBSA said to me the other day, it's the most successful rookie season ever. So,
and am I right in thinking you recently won an award?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I won Breakthrough Bobsleigh Athlete of the Year. Yeah,
that's fantastic news. So at that point, how's that working? I mean, we understood earlier you quit your job. Who's paying for you to be?
Oh man, so
this. I mean,
this was
in your first season, especially because I know how it works. Can you explain to me? Are you being paid at this point to be an athlete?
Yes, I am now. Yeah.
Sorry, I mean when we're talking about when you're at the Europeans and the Worlds for the first time, are you being paid?
I was at that point. So I've said I'd quit my job and I was just working here and there, delivery driving or whatever, and started the season. And I started the season not being paid because the payment is based on performance. So you have to have raced and you have to have hit certain targets. So I didn't start getting paid until January, end of January. And I just used my savings and I basically spent every penny I had to kind of make.
So you've supported yourself through essentially this period to get to post competing, presumably, so you can get your professional athlete wage. What's that like? I mean, how does that work? So you're October to January, you're paying for yourself, you're doing all of this.
Yeah, I mean, of course, everything to do with the team's covered. So travel, food, accommodation, all that's covered. So don't need to worry about that.
Who covers that?
That is
British Bobsleigh. Is that part of funding?
Yeah, it's our funding from UK Sport.
Right,
that was all of that.
That's interesting.
But yeah, in terms of like putting money, the money I had was going on my mortgage and my bills back at home, and I was, really spending anything for myself.
So you're making sacrifices for this at the same time then, really? Because presumably you're 24, 25, lots of other people you're going out every weekend, getting pissed all the time and having a whale of a time probably.
I mean, I was reassured by the other lads that, because I had to have 3 top 6 pushes and 3 top 6 finishes on World Cup races or above. And we achieved that like in the first 3 races. So it was like, there was reassurance. It was kind of, it's coming, it's inevitable. So I could hold on without worrying about it too much.
I guess now this is where I've come in, hasn't it? So second season.
Yeah.
You've done all this. You're the world silver medalist, European Championship champions. And now you've got that second season syndrome. Do you feel more pressure? Is it more difficult? What's that second season like? Now you've gone in and been the most successful British bobsleigh team in however long and da-da-da. Does that add pressure? Do you like that pressure? Is there a difference now you are a, inverted commas, professional athlete being paid? Is your lifestyle a bit different?
Yeah, so lifestyle's massively different. I just focus on training and performance and recovery and all that sort of stuff, which is great. And I get all the perks of being an athlete. So I get access to, performance lifestyle coaching and psychology help, nutritional help and training and all that sort of stuff. In terms of like the pressure for next season, I think I've said this to you before. it's not like last season for us was just the start. It was always going to be our worst season. That's what we believe. We're only I'm brand new. Taylor's he's only been doing it 3 years, and he's 26, so he's not very old. He's getting bigger and stronger and faster, like I am. Greg and Brad have got all the experience in the world, and they're still performing at the same level, if not better than they were. So for us, it just feels like we're getting better. There's no pressure. We just think we're going to be better.
And I suppose that comes down to the psychology, and as winners and silver medalists, it must be much easier. If you'd have placed 26 or something in the world, you might go, "Oh, I'm not going to be so confident." But obviously, by doing it, achieving it, you've got that ability.
Yeah.
It's just maintaining it.
I think your goals change, So if you were finishing 26th, you might think, "Oh, I want to finish 12th or something."
Yeah.
But for us, it's like, well, what didn't we do last year that we can do this year? And so that means world champions and, ranked world number 1 by the end of the season. So, well, for us brakemen especially, where our job is mainly pushing, we want fastest push starts.
Okay.
And just be dominant.
I mean, I don't want to give away any trade secrets or training secrets, but are you doing things differently this time in your training that you perhaps didn't do last time? I mean, is it different simply for you because you've got money behind you as a professional athlete, sports science, which you've obviously got a knowledge of as well, but like on-hand sports psychology, nutrition, repair, does that suddenly make you feel like, well, I was a rookie last year and I've got all this behind me this season. Surely that means I'm going to be better this season.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of thought I'd peaked physically before I started doing bobsleigh. My best lifts were like when I was 21, 20, in the gym, for example. And I just thought, well, I'll probably never get to that level ever again. That was my mentality before starting this. And then within, I'd probably say 6 months of starting bobsleigh training and everything out, I'd smashed my lifts. I was running PBs, So for me, it was really good to see that because it reminded me that, well, I'm not even at my peak yet. There's still so much more in me that I can get on. So yeah, exactly. I think next season I know I'm going to be an athlete because I'm already head and shoulders above where I was this time last year. Yeah.
And do you see that in the other guys in the team as well? Do you think they've improved from last year?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, Greg's a freak of nature. He's just seems like he's not slowing down. He's 33 now, but he is still getting bigger, still getting faster, and his times on the track are proving that he's still getting better. He's had a bit of an injury recently.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, which I think is a key factor for all of you, especially as professional athletes. Now, you've recently trained a bit too hard, haven't you, and done a bit too much?
Yeah, I think it might have been a wear and tear from the season, and then coming back into the gym, and my body's just
what's happened?
Liked it too much. I had a hernia, right down a low one, inguinal hernia it's called, so down towards the groin area, if you like. Well, when the surgeon actually went in there, he found 2. So there's 2 hernias in there. But that's been patched up.
So you're already back in the gym and you're doing bits, right?
I'm doing bits, yeah. I'm certainly not
lifting. The doctor's listening.
I know, right?
Yeah, God, I feel really bad. No, he's not back in the gym. He's really resting up slowly. But
yeah,
but you're feeling good, yeah?
Lifting pretty light. Yeah, feeling good. Like there's a bit of pain, but I think that's to be expected. Apparently I can't do much damage to it now. As long as I can sort of deal with the pain, that's fine. And that'll eventually go. That's just like nerve stress and a bit of muscle stress and stuff like that.
But bit of recovery time. What does that do in terms of you as a team? Does that sort of disjoint everything a little bit because you guys are injured and you can't necessarily go through the same training that you would do as normal?
Yeah, I think there's potential for that. There's definitely potential for maybe might get to the start of the season and not be in as good a shape. For me, I don't think that's going to be the case because of how much better an athlete I am now compared to last year. I think even with this injury, I'm still going to be a lot better by the start of the season. It does mean that we can't train together and push the sled together and stuff like that. But
if there are any Germans or Swiss listening,
yeah,
don't worry, they're still coming for you, and you need to be worried because they're bigger and better than they were last season. So, but that's a hard thing to deal with, I suppose, isn't it? When you are when you're so athletic in what you do, to have that setback.
Yeah.
Again, and just another. I mean, hats off to you and your mental resilience, because a lot of other people that could have probably done some psychological damage to. God, how's this going to affect me? Can I get back in time? What's the
process?
What's the process?
It's the hardest thing about that, and it isn't easy. is like the target on your back, you know. So there are a number of athletes who are, I don't want to say, it's not the right term, but who are
coming up the ranks.
Coming up the ranks.
Yeah.
And they're good athletes, you know. And it's like there is a target on my back because I'm the newest in the sled and probably physically behind Taylor and Greg. And so I'd be the first one to go, right? That's how I look at it.
Does that act as a driver for you, though?
Yeah, big time, yeah. Yeah, because there's no way I'd like to be, I want to compete. That's the thing I love doing. So there's no way I'd want to go out and despair or anything like that. And of course, then with that, you risk losing your funding if somebody else deserves it more. You know, and all of a sudden,
cutthroat.
Yeah, it's very cutthroat, very competitive. It's a strange sport because you're a team, but at the same time, you're all against each other.
It's all about who's the fastest, who's the strongest.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting one.
Yeah, so that's the hardest thing for me. You know, I'm injured and I'm missing out on, 4 to 6 weeks of training and is somebody else doing more.
And how do you keep your mind in a good place at that point? I mean, obviously, from year dot, you've shown really strong mental resilience and discipline to get to where you want to go. But
yeah,
it must be hard. Do you find the imposter syndrome kicking back in a little bit when you're sat on the sofa going, "Oh, I can't quite move as well as I"? You're in that rehab and recovery period.
So this is probably the weakest part of my mental fortitude, if you like. That even though I've achieved everything I've achieved and I've proven I can do it, I still think that there's somebody out there who could be better than me, and I'd never want to allow that to happen. So that's I train hard to try and stop that happening. But as soon as I can't train and I see people training and doing a lot, it's like, it does get difficult. And I try to tell myself as much as possible that I'm a lot better than I was. I'm a phenomenal athlete and try and tell myself that internally, but it still doesn't get that little voice out of the back of my head that thinks there's someone for me sort of thing. So, but
as long as you say, you can use that as a driver.
Yeah.
To motivate you and push you further and stuff. I think that's brilliant. It's when you can't, I suppose, that's when the voice wins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's the difficult point.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Is there someone in your life that has instilled that in you apart from your parents, or that you've taken inspiration from? It could be someone you know. It could be an athlete. It could be...
Yeah, so I'd probably say a big one would be my brother.
Okay.
He and I have done a lot of hard stuff together. I'm quite an accomplished mountaineer, which might be a conversation for another day, but he's always been the one to, if I've been showing signs of weakness that, he knows that I'm better than, he'll call me out on it straight away.
We all need someone.
Yeah, and vice versa. So, I'm the same with him. We've kind of sharpened each other, if you like, in that way, my brother and I. We've been in a lot of tricky situations together and a lot of hard, physical, grueling situations together.
Such as?
Well.
You can't say that and not give me some gems of information.
Okay, so a couple come to mind. Like we did a very long distance trek in Scotland a couple of years ago, and we were covering a lot of ground per day with a lot of weight on our backs and stuff. And the weather in Scotland can be unforgiving at times, very cold, very wet. So there was periods of time where we were walking for 18 hours or whatever in the pouring rain, freezing, and you're going through little villages and towns and there's signs of Airbnbs and stuff like that up, and you just think, we could dip into a B&B and get a nice warm bed. But it's like we're not here for that. Like, we're here to push ourselves, test ourselves as much as possible.
And was that the goal with these, this trek?
Yeah.
It was all about just pushing yourself.
Just pushing ourselves.
Do it for charity or anything, or just for yourself?
Not that.
No,
not that one.
We're going to do this.
Yeah. Just like draw a line on a map. We didn't stick to paths or anything like that. It was just cross country, bam.
Wow.
Yeah, and then just walk.
What do you think it is about your brother? I mean, obviously you've both grown up in the same environment of competitiveness, discipline. Is there a competitiveness between the two of you? It seems like obviously there's camaraderie, but do you and your brother have a competitiveness between you as well?
I wouldn't say so, no.
That's interesting.
No, I don't think we never had any fights when we were younger, really.
So just the two of you basically trying to push yourself to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's quite an interesting sibling dynamic.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mentality we kind of developed. We like being as tough as we can, if you like.
What do you think is the toughest thing you've done that's not just the bobsleigh, that's tested your mental resilience throughout your life?
physically or just in general?
I mean, yeah, I want to know what the challenges are that you think is the most hard physical challenge you've been through, but also I think maybe the mental challenge as well, because you seem to have quite a lot of that, as I say, that mental resilience. So I'm wondering, has there been a time that's where you've really struggled, where you've gone, God, I'm not as strong as I once thought I was? Or I think it actually, for a strong person like yourself, who's mentally strong and physically strong, where are those areas of weaknesses that you, not trying to uncover your weakness, but we've all felt weakness.
Yeah.
What are those moments that you've really been tested?
I think the biggest one was failing my master's degree, because it was such a brutal way to fail it. I don't know if anybody's ever done a Viva examination. It's essentially you work for a year on your thesis and you collect all your data and you try and put your argument forward, and you sit in a room with 3 or 4 other accomplished academics, PhDs and the like, and they have read your work, and their job is to rip it to shreds, basically. And you've got to defend it. Right. That's your job, because of course that's how science should be done, really, if you like. It needs to be rigorous. And I think that really uncovered a weakness in me, because I'd gone through my academic life, if you like, all the way through school and then even into my undergrad, really winging it and not applying myself as much as I should, probably in that area. And I got to the masters and that ran out. I managed to get all my other vocations pretty well without putting in too much work, but I got to the master's degree, and that's kind of where the ceiling.
Would you say that's possibly one of your first areas of failure? That's why it was maybe so hard?
Yeah, big areas of failure for sure, yeah.
And do you think because you hadn't got the resilience to the failure, you've always been so successful at what you put your mind to?
Yeah.
When you didn't accomplish that, that's a big blow, right?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to go back and finish it and work on it, and I chose not to, because I could see the love for it wasn't there, and I thought my efforts would be best spent somewhere else. That didn't help. It's almost like I'd have been better off finishing it, although I don't regret it now. But it's just, it stuck with me. I heard someone say once, if like a good period of time, if a couple of years has passed and you're thinking about something, it still bothers you when you think about it, you probably
need to address it. How long did you reckon that lasted after your masters?
I'm still not completely over it.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think I'm 90% of the way there.
But is it because of the failure that you don't want to accept it, or is it the fact that you really want that masters in sports science?
It's the failure. It's not. Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
It's the internal beast inside you that doesn't want to be seen to fail, I think, right?
And maybe there was an element of that, because I now believe I can do anything I want. I don't need that degree to do it, because this last year was a big year for me in terms of working out that actually I can go and be the thing that I want to be.
Well, it's life-changing.
Yeah. There was 2 things I did last year. I climbed Mont Blanc with my brother, unguided, just the 2 of us.
Okay, hang on. So there's you talking about going on a trek in Scotland. You and your brother climb Mont Blanc on your own?
Yeah.
See, that's not normal, mate. Like, I mean, not to say that, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But there's something in your mindset that's very different to Joe Public, who sat on the sofa every night coming home from his job. I know you're a professional athlete, but that mentality, that striving to be better, that discipline, that mental fortitude is inspiring to me, and it's very admirable.
Yeah, well, thanks. So that was a big thing, because we planned that. Mont Blanc is a big mountain, and you have to do acclimatization, peaks, get yourself up high and do all that. And that was all new to us, because it was the first time out in the Alps.
Listen, I'm sure there's mountain guys that go, no, we don't advise anyone go out ever alone especially on their first time. And there's you two, the Gulliver brothers on top of Mont Blanc.
We were extremely diligent with it, right? So we found out all the skill sets that we couldn't get in the UK. We've done a lot of winter mountaineering in Scotland, etc. So we have all the basic ice axe, crampon skills, ropes, all that sort of stuff. But there's certain things that's different in the Alps. Of course, you've got glaciers with crevasses, all that sort of stuff. So you need to learn how to rescue on those areas. Bigger, you've got altitude to contend with. Weather isn't really much different. Scotland's brutal. So that wasn't going to be much of an issue. It's just the distance you've got to cover. So in Scotland, you can be up on Ben Nevis And if the weather really comes in, you could run off it in 3 hours. Whereas
you're not doing that.
You're not doing no. Yeah. So there were a number of things that we identified that we needed to get under our belt before we got up there, and we did it all. You know, we learned how to crevasse rescue. We learned how to navigate across like glaciers and all that sort of stuff. We picked our routes. We did our acclimatization climbs. And
is this before or after you finished your masters?
This was last year. So this was after I quit my job.
Okay. So this is what I mean. You've failed your masters, which you've arguably said is probably the most difficult thing, you know, you've been through due to the failure, not necessarily the master's degree. So off the back of that, you go, right, okay, I'm going to climb, do all these crazy challenges. And do you think these challenges, these saying yes, you and your brother pushing yourself, is that always been there, or were you trying to prove something to yourself after failing your masters?
No, I think that's always been there, and I would say this: that Mont Blanc was more driven by my brother than it was me. He just came out with it one day, and I was like, "That's ludicrous." Like that's Mont Blanc's.
What did he have to do to convince you? You sat there going, "Oh, it's ludicrous," but yet you still did it. What was
not a lot of convincing.
No, not much arm twisting.
No, it was just sort of like, well, why not? You know, that's that question. It was like, well, and then I started like putting barriers forward, and then I realised I was just putting barriers forward, which, you know, barriers you can just knock down, and then kind of talked myself around in a circle for a bit, and then I was like, yeah, no, you're probably right. Actually, we could, yeah.
I love that. Well, we put barriers against ourselves, but you can just knock down barriers. But mostly that's the biggest mental struggle most people have. They create the barriers for themselves, but they can't.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you're very different in your mentality, your mindset, your discipline, mental fortitude, resilience, all those things. It's like, oh, I put the barriers up, but then I just knocked them down and said we can do them.
Yeah.
And essentially that's what you did. You took the gamble, you quit your job, went into the bobsleigh, excelled at that.
Yeah.
And now, it's mind blowing really, all these things. So your brother's quite an inspirational character in your life then?
100%, yeah. Yeah, he's got a lot more courage than I have, I think, naturally, you know. He's more of a fuck it kind of character.
Really?
Yeah, just throws himself into things a bit more than I do. And I think, I don't know whether that's just a difference in temperament, difference in personality, or whether it's because he's a year older than me, so he was always first, you know, he went to school first, he went to secondary school first, he did all those things first, and then it was always easy for me coming up. When I went from primary school to secondary school, it was like, well, I've got my bigger brother up there, so that's fine. That's and all his mates already, so.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
University first, you know, he was the first
You
one.
had that stepping stone. He was all, oh, well, he's done it, I can do it. He's done it, I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that mentality is still instilled. And I think you say he's got more bravery or more courage than you. Don't know. I think you both seem like very interesting characters, because there's not many people who have responded to an Instagram ad about going and trying bobsleigh.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
These are weird. Not weird, that's the wrong word, but they're unusual routes to take. Just go, yeah, I can do that. Or, oh, what's to stop us climbing Ben Nevis or Mont Blanc or what, you know, that's, and as I say, maybe that's a professional athlete mindset. If I speak to more professional athletes, you're probably all very similar. You've got that discipline, mental fortitude, resilience that we've spoken about that I think Joe Public could learn a lot from.
Yeah. Well, it's fair. I don't look at it like that, you know.
Well, no, because it's you.
Exactly.
You don't see it as it. But as someone, I've always prided myself on setting myself goals and trying to continually be better than I was. But you do that on another level.
Yeah, well, yeah. But then I always think there's the people out there who do it on another level.
Yeah.
You know, to me, which inspires me.
Yeah.
So.
So who is your? I mean, you've said your brother, but anyone else that you find inspiring that you sort of look at and go, well, it gives you that, encourages you to be the person that you are and push that.
I'm very intrinsically motivated.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah. Greg has had a huge impact on my life. Who's a member of the team.
Yeah. In what way? Because let's face it, you sound like you've been surrounded by inspiring people. Your brother, your family, you know, constantly pushing yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, not to belittle the other guys because they're all wicked dudes. I love them to pieces. What is it about yours and Greg's relationship since you've been doing the bobsleigh that's been so inspiring?
Greg is the best athlete I've ever met in my life. The best athlete I've ever had the pleasure of being around. So there's that side of things.
What makes him the best athlete to you? Because obviously you're you're an extremely skilled athlete yourself. What makes him the best that you've met? What is it?
I think coming from a sprinting background, he was a very accomplished sprinter before bobsleigh. He was trained by Linford Christie, and he's been in those circles where he raced against Usain Bolt, all those sorts of crazy things. And so I look up to him in that aspect because I've got so much to learn from him on it. But it's I think for him, for me rather, he got me really believing. I don't want to say believing in myself because I believe in myself, but he got me really believing in myself. He'd tell me what I was doing was exceptional, and he would say how I'm adding so much to the team. All those little things that just really encouraged me. And then Greg himself is a pretty cool character. He's very socially, he's very good. He's a very good natural orator. There's a lot about him that I just think like that is if I could be like that or more like that, then there's loads of things in my life that I could unlock and do that I want to do.
That's a great moving on to my next question. Well, shout out to Greg because he is a legend. Presumably for you and the team, the goal will be 2026 Italy. Is it Milan, the
Milan.
Winter Olympics? Is that the big goal? I mean, obviously you've got Worlds and Europeans and then your normal season on the lead up to those.
Yeah, that's the big goal.
But is that your...
That's the long term.
That's the long term for you and the team is let's get to 2026, hit Milan and show everyone what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
On a world stage. Yeah. Not that it's not on a world, but obviously the Olympics is such a bigger, Winter Olympics is where we all tend to see these events.
For sure, yeah. Right? Yeah, and I'd like, obviously I'm hoping we can build our profile up until then and we can go into the games as a medal hopeful. And really have our achievements outlined, and then so a lot of people know to watch us, because we could.
And this is part of what we've sort of joined up to try and do is to try and me come in and sort of add some visuals, some videos, some whatever, just to try and raise some profile. And already off the back of that, we've had you guys have had world strongest man Eddie Hall down at the track.
That's cool.
That's talking about raising profile because he's got millions of subscribers and all that sort of stuff. So. How was that? Being a bit more, what did you feel about being in the video and having potentially millions of people looking at you and Eddie Hall going, I know it was a bit of fun and it wasn't, you guys took a day out of your training to have him and his team down there, which was wicked.
Yeah, no, it was wicked. Eddie contacted me when we were out at World Champs and he asked if he could come down and he stuck to it, which is amazing. And just had a bit of fun with him. Again though, you can tell the other three lads who have done it for longer are far more comfortable in those sorts of positions. They've obviously had people down at the track before. They've done those sorts of things and they're used to it. Obviously, the more you do stuff, the better you get at it, right? So,
yeah, of course. We'll include a link to the video. I don't know when this is going to go out, but we'll include a link to the video because it is very funny and he is a nice guy and it did raise some awareness about what you guys actually go through.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the comments on the YouTube video were really positive. Aside from all the steroid accusations that people like to throw around.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen any of that. I saw that the video was doing really well because obviously I've shared it a few times and I was lucky enough to get you guys all in as portraits and we got some lovely shots there. But no, I haven't looked at the comments. They're all saying you're all on steroids.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people, they just see guys with a bit of muscle on them and cool roids, right? So
yeah, but you're a professional athlete.
We're all tested a lot.
It's a different thing, isn't it?
Mm.
But things like that, is that something you'd like to do more of, raising more awareness about the bobsleigh
100%.
and seeing if you can get more?
Yeah, 100%. It's not only good for us as a team to get hype and support, it's great for the legacy of the sport. So Milan's probably going to be Greg's and Brad's last Olympic, probably might be Taylor's as well. So, the heart of the team's going to get ripped out and we need new athletes. So the more exposure, the more publicity we can get around the sport, it's the more athletes we can get in and keep it going. These achievements are great, but if it's just they were good for this 4 years and then bobsleigh dies again for the next 30, it's...
So what characteristics do you look for in athletes to come into bobsleigh?
Yeah, so you need good natural speed, and then if you're a bigger sprinter type guy, if you're muscly and you've got a lot of power, strength,
And do UK Bobsleigh, I know you replied to an ad on Instagram, but do they do a regular recruitment thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, they haven't been, because the problem is, before the last Olympics, which was 2022, that was the last Winter Games, they had no funding. The team had no funding whatsoever from UK Sport. So they weren't recruiting because,
how do you draw people into a sport that's got no money?
Exactly, yeah. So they weren't really recruiting. As soon as we got the money back, we started recruiting. So that was last year. That's how I got.
Right. And so from a team and a UK bobsleigh point of view, you guys are always looking for sponsorship of sorts, even whether that's individual as an individual athlete or as a team, presumably. How does that work?
Yes.
Obviously, the more funding, the better. You're allowed to get private sponsors?
Yes, you can get personal sponsors. I've got Phil Oliver and Bex, and they run CrossFit Wire Forest.
And that's your gym,
That's
right?
my gym, so they give me free membership there.
Right.
So all those little things add up, right? And then we do have some team sponsors.
But if anyone's listening, please feel free to get in touch with the team, because the more sponsorship, the better. And as I say, I think it would be a good time to sponsor these guys, because, as I say, listen to the confidence, listen to the accolades that they've already won. You'd be going in at a good season. Dude, I think that I have got another couple of things. So I'm asking every guest that comes on someone in their network that they think might be an interesting or inspiring person to talk to on the podcast. So have you got anyone that's in mind?
Yeah, so I've got a guy called Steve Smith.
Okay, Steve Smith.
Steve Smith, quite a generic name, but he's a cool guy. He's had an interesting life, past, and he is a teacher.
What makes him interesting? Why inspiring, and why would you suggest him to have a chat to on the podcast?
So his life hasn't been easy. I don't know all the details, but he grew up in the foster care system and then he ended up getting taken in by a wonderful family who raised him. But he's dealt with a lot. His brother was quite a troubled character. They went into foster care together. Right. But so he's had a lot to deal with.
And why do you find him an inspiring character?
Because it's just a completely different life to what I was brought up on.
Interesting.
And he's done so much, and he's achieved so much.
And do you think this is someone that would be up for coming on the podcast?
Yeah, so I have spoken to him.
Oh, you have?
I've mentioned it, and he said, he's up for it. So.
Wicked. That sounds great. Well, I'm always interested in speaking to new and interesting, inspiring people, because let's face it, that's kind of why we're all here. We're all trying to just lead, I hate the phrase, but lead the best life we possibly can.
Yeah.
My final thing, dude, we want an inspiring quote to leave people with. And that can be one of yours. It can be someone from history. It can be anything you like. But we want to leave someone with something inspiring.
I've written it down because I don't want to butcher it at all.
And who's it attributed? That's we've got to make sure we quote it right.
This is it. So I'm not really one for inspiring quotes. I'm not one for like the short-term motivation pulse,
Okay, that's interesting.
I like the long-term, and I think the only way you do that is you find something that you love and you do. But this is slightly inspiring, I suppose. It's from Socrates, so the Greek philosopher, and it fits my ethos and what I believe in. So the quote is, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It's a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and the strength of which his body is capable."
Oh, I like that.
That first bit, no man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. Obviously, that's quite extreme because, of course, you've got the right to do whatever you like. But physical training has given me so much, mentally and physically. And I think you can offer so much more to society if you're fit physically, fit mentally. I can do anything I want to do physically. Yeah. I could run a marathon, sprint fast, and I can lift a lot of weight and that.
And that's more down to your mindset, I think, right?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, you're an absolute unit.
Yeah.
But I think with the Socrates quote, I think it is about mindset. Don't give up. Push yourself to the limits. Achieve yourself. Yeah. Be better.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, couldn't think of a better place to leave that. Yeah. You've been an absolute legend. This has been so interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
And I can't wait. I can't wait to our project to carry on, to see where we go the next season for you guys and the rest of the team.
Yeah. Well, you've been awesome. You've been awesome getting involved, and you've inspired us actually, Matt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of course, man. You really made us think about the potential our team has and marketing ourselves better and stuff like that. So thanks very much.
Oh, mate, it's my absolute pleasure. That's a little gem. And now we should end because my head will start swelling. Dude, you're a legend. Can't wait to see everything that's going to happen. I can only see it being brilliant stuff moving forward. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problems.
Legend.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Noah Land podcast. If you found anything inspiring or useful in this episode, please consider subscribing or maybe sharing the episode with a friend. Anything you can do to help promote and support Creative Nomaland is so beneficial, and I really appreciate it. Check out the website and sign up to the newsletter to be the first to know of everything that's going on here in Creative Nomaland. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, explore, inspire, and create.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?